Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are today, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. As we mentioned last week, those of us who are speaking remove our masks so that we can be more accessible to those who need to read lips. So that is why we are doing that. And I have this wonderful shield in front of me today. So in case you haven't noticed, we have some extra stuff in the back of our sanctuary. Tuesday is election day in Birmingham, and we are a polling place. So we are in need of your help, both for hospitality for the poll workers who come here, and also they require that we have a church member in the building at all times. We especially need someone for the early morning shift to let folks in the building. So if you can do that, please let me know or sign up on the Sign Up Genius or call the church office. We appreciate your help in furthering and promoting our democracy. To all who are here this morning, welcome home.
And Greater Birmingham Ministries. Sorry, guys. We also have a special announcement from Amethyst.
Good morning. My name is Amethyst Vineyard, and over the summer I served as the interim director of religious education. Closer? Okay, I'm scared of this thing though. And I'm currently serving as the RE coordinator along with Courtney, helping her out. As many of you know, our playground is undergoing a transformation. It became very clear, very suddenly and violently in the spring, that some of our equipment was outdated and frankly dangerous. So we have been working hard to develop a plan to redo our playground and make it a safe and wonderful place for all of our kids of all ages. We are taking it slow, and we've broken it down into a 3-phase plan. So phase 1 is complete. We cleared out all of the old equipment, and we now have a nice big open space for the kids to play. But it's time for us to start considering phases 2 and 3, where we start to put in new equipment that's going to last for a long time and be up to code and safe for everyone. This morning, Courtney and I put together a board out in the narthex with some options for the equipment. If you guys would like to help us out in this transformation and donate, maybe by purchasing a whole piece of equipment to donate, or by helping out with landscaping, with mulching, by donating $5, $10. Every little bit helps us to get this done for our kids, and we appreciate everything that you do. If you would like to donate, please get in touch with Courtney. Her email address is dlfd@uucbham.org. That was a lot of letters, but you know. I think it should be also in the order of service. Thank you so much.
The prelude prepares us for worship. please rise in body or spirit for the lighting of the chalice. Come, you accidental pilgrims, you who find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come, you who emerge into this place as an act of liberation. Come, you who seek a life of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come, you who bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken open in revelation, hearts full of love to share. Come, you who seek courage, and you who have more courage than you realize. Come, you who stand behind the curtain, gathering up the resources to claim your truth. Come, you who have been in a bubble, you who are poised for transformation. We begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. We gather as people of all ages, of all abilities, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. We share a covenant, a direction of our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth. This path will ask much of us. Let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome to join this journey. Please be seated for the opening words. You are beloved, and you are welcome here.
Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week, or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth.
You are beloved, and you are welcome here.
Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful.
You are beloved, and you are welcome here.
Whether you have untold stories buried deep inside, or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort.
You are beloved, and you are welcome here.
Whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promises.
You are beloved, and you are welcome here.
Whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment.
You are beloved, and you are welcome here.
In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, let us worship together.
Good morning. I am Antoine Tony Bell, and I'm your board president. And I just want to welcome you this morning with a big old air hug as usual, since we can't do it in person. And also to add, our board is in sync, and that's is evidenced today by Barbara and I. We had no idea what we were wearing today, but we're in sync. If you wish to join this happy family this morning, please come forward during the offertory to sign our membership book. Please sign your connection card in your seat or on the web at bit.ly/WWCB connection. Our church is supported by those who call our church home and by those who support the efforts of our church to change the world for the better. If this is your first time with us, please pass the plate. We're glad to have you here. We share our cash plate every Sunday with organizations whose work reflects UU values to care for marginalized persons, advocate for real and systemic change, defend our environment, and promote justice and equity for all. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Youth Towers, a 501c3 organization focusing on assisting youth ages 19 through 26 who are aging out of the foster care system and state care programs. Youth Towers helps young adults find housing, have interim housing, jobs, do life skills training, provide bus passes, etc. 95% of young adults served are kids are of color, and close to 40% are LGBTQ. We appreciate your donations either by placing them in the plate or mailing your donation to the church or by using PayPal or Venmo. Our Venmo account is at UUCBham. Please designate whether your offering is for UUCB or Youth Towers. Thank you for your generous support of our church and share the plate recipient. May we give in love and in hope.
It is so good to be among you today. It just changes everything to look around and see all of your faces, even behind masks. Now is that time in our community when we share what we carry with us today, joy or sorrow. If there's anything for you that you'd like me to share publicly, please let me know ahead of time. But we are so glad you are here. For those of you who are online with us this morning, please share your joys or sorrows in our online chat. And remember to hold others by placing a parenthesis around their name. For those of you in person today, you are now invited to come forward and drop a stone in honor or in memory of what is on your heart today. Please come forward. Today we celebrate the joy of having art in our sanctuary again, thanks to Evelyn. So I hope that you will take time to look at the art hung on the walls today, or any time that it's up, but it is beautiful. Thank you, Evelyn. Today we also celebrate with Margie McDermott, who had a birthday recently. Happy birthday, Margie. And also, Marcella Little is turning 90 on Saturday. So happy birthday, Marcella. Today we also lift up Allison McPoland and Noah and Ethan and Allie's sister Catherine and all of their family on the loss of their mother Nancy this week. So please keep the family in your thoughts and prayers this week. We drop a final stone for any other unspoken joys or sorrows among us today. May we keep one another in our hearts and minds as we go forth this week in love. Please take this moment to hear a spoken meditation followed by a moment of silence. Today's meditation was written by the Reverend Teresa Enes Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a north star, and to the truth that we are greater together than alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by covenant and movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Amen, and blessed be. Will the children please come forward?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Courtney McKinney, and I am so happy to be your Director of Lifespan Faith Development for everyone. And I should also invite anyone other than the children to come forward, too. I mean, Dick, you told me you wanted to come up front for the story. So I have a story to share with everyone today. It's about Grandpa's birthday. Has anyone had a birthday party or got together with their family and friends for a birthday, maybe? It's a little harder now, but we're going to talk a little bit about Grandpa's birthday. So Grandfather's birthday was coming up soon, and the family and friends were trying to decide what they wanted to do for his birthday. So they were trying to think of gifts. What kind of things might Grandfather like? Any ideas? Someone thought maybe a sweater. What do you think, Julie?
Fishing stuff.
Fishing stuff. What do you think, Alex?
Probably like a hat to get the sun off so it doesn't burn his hair.
Ooh, these are good ideas. A hat to keep his head safe. I like that. Maybe socks. Everybody likes new socks, right? What do you think, Amy? A mug. Oh, that might actually be very helpful. Well, they were thinking and thinking and thinking, and they realized that Grandpa hadn't opened any of the presents from last year. Like, he still had them all on his shelf. They thought, well, maybe he needs a new book to read, but they realized his shelf was full of books. Or maybe he needed a new painting for his walls, but his walls were full of paintings. So they thought and thought and thought and tried to remember, what is something that Grandfather likes to do? And they thought, Grandfather loves to sit in his comfortable chair and drink hot tea with honey. Does anybody else like hot tea with honey? Any of you grown-ups out there, tea drinkers? So, honey, that would be a great gift for Grandfather. He has a big crock sitting on his shelf that he uses for honey, and it was empty. So his friends and family decided that they would all bring a small jar of honey and add it to the crock pot so that it would be full, so Grandfather would have honey all year long for his tea. Seems like a good idea, right? Pretty good. So Jane was thinking, and she realized she didn't have any honey, and the party was soon, and she had to figure out what to do next. So she thought, and she thought, and she thought, and she came up with an idea. Oh no. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily her best idea. You know where this is going? Uh-oh. Jane decided that since she didn't have any honey at home, she would take her small jar and fill it with water and put a little food coloring in it so that it was a golden color of honey. And then she would just pour it into the big crock, and Grandfather wouldn't notice because everyone else would bring their honey. And it would just make the honey easier to pour. This seems like a good idea. Yeah, I feel like there's trouble coming. So they get to the party, and everyone, one by one, adds their honey to the jar, or to the crock, and suddenly it's full. Time to present it to grandfather. They take the crock to grandfather, and he's like, "What is this? What is this?" And all his friends and family try to give him some hints. They're like buzzing like bees, maybe, or licking their lips like they're tasting the honey, or pretending to drink tea. And grandfather goes, "Oh, honey for my tea, how wonderful." So he opens the crock and he puts a big spoon in, dips it out, smells it, looks at it, takes a little taste, says, "What is this? This looks like honey. It's the golden color, but it tastes like water." And Jane blushed. She turned bright red. And John kind of turned his back and walked away. And Jillian looked really embarrassed. And Jason turned very red. Come to find out, everyone had had the very same not so good idea. So grandfather just laughed. He said, "That's fine. I have a birthday next year. No big deal. Let's just celebrate." So they go about their celebrations, everyone feeling a little guilty. But you would not be surprised that the next year, when they decided what to do for grandfather, they did bring honey this time. And everyone brought their little jars and poured it into the crock. And when grandfather went to taste it, it was the most delicious honey he'd ever had. He could taste the orange blossom from Jane's honey, and he could taste the clove from John's honey, and he could smell all the different flavors and tastes from all of his friends and family, and he was happy. So that crock of honey, I feel like, is a little bit like our church. When we bring our very best selves, our very best honey, with us to church, we have a sweeter day. So, what do you think? All right. That's it. Bring your honey. I'm kidding, don't bring honey. All right, let's hum the children downstairs.
We have two readings this morning as we talk about covenant. The first is by Reverend Alice Blair Wesley. Though our knowledge is incomplete, our truth partial, and our love uneven, from our own experience and from the witness of our faith tradition, we believe that new light is ever waiting to break through individual hearts and minds to illumine the ways of humankind, that there is mutual strength in willing cooperation, and that the bonds of love keep open the gates of freedom. Therefore, we pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection as best we know them now, or may learn them in days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world with words and actions of peace and goodwill. Our second reading is by Michael W. Hennon, and it's inspired by the Salem Covenant of 1629. We covenant with one another and do bind ourselves together in the presence of this religious community to express our deepest and most cherished convictions as they are borne by each person to find a common vision for a better world, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, choosing with reverence its name, and to walk together in the way of truth and love as it is shown to us and to all people, in word and in deed. Thank you to both of our authors this morning. Confession, I love continuing education, especially when there are no grades involved. Yes, it is a beautiful thing. This week I started 2 courses at once, which I admit in the middle of planning for our mountain retreat next weekend may be a little overkill, but nevertheless, that's what I did. So one of the workshops is called Hybrid Ministry in a Post-Pandemic Church. Won't it be nice when we can get there? Which examines the multi-platform church that we are returning to. The fact that we have space for those who are here online with us and those who are here in person. The board and I certainly want both sets of folks to feel welcome and included in the church, and we are so appreciative to all the volunteers who make it happen. Embracing the newness in the moment while remaining steadfast in our foundations have long been Unitarian and Universalist values. We are folks who live in the paradox. Our church lexicon is one of those ways we incorporate the new with the old. We update our hymns to have inclusive language, and yet we still refer to this as the sanctuary and that room over there as the narthex. Narthex is a word from the 15th century, meaning the porch at the west end of the church, while sanctuary from the 13th century means a place set apart, a place of refuge and protection. As many of us have come to this place from the spiritual diaspora, many of us have theological trigger words that bring up unpleasant times in other spaces. It's true for me as well. I can't hear the word Lord without shuddering from the unpleasantness of somehow being a Middle Ages vassal to a divine being or another human. And sometimes there is no other word that can really describe what we are after, like sanctuary and narthex. As Unitarian Universalists, we have the freedom to reframe words and use secondary definitions and be creative, and with practice and use, some words become less scary over time. Religious words aren't to blame. It's how they've been used in the past that is troublesome. And hopefully, we can learn ways to use these words better. Last week, I introduced our Director of Lifespan Faith Development, Courtney McKinney, and you just saw her up front. And a few have asked why we changed her title from Director of Religious Education. In debating a title change, we wanted a title that reflected Courtney's full-time work, and also that she will be intimately involved in planning adult enrichment activities as well. We chose a very typical UU title. There are many folks in the UU world who carry Courtney's title, but some folks had issues with faith development, although they admitted that religious education wasn't much better. I know. I had one person ask if we were going to start indoctrinating the children with conservative values. And I said, of course not. Of course not. In this staff change, I literally lost sleep over trying to find a title that would accurately fit Courtney's description. And I couldn't, because it's such a unique position, both in our world and especially in our denomination. It was so difficult to qualify it. We haven't changed the goals or values of our program. Our faith development includes those whose faith involves a deity or deities, those who have faith in the laws of science, or those whose faith lies in the mystery, and so many other variations. What you are hearing up here are the same values and lessons repackaged age appropriately that our children and youth receive downstairs. They are learning about the principles and about how to be kind to one another and care for the earth. Our faith development involves the evolution of each individual's journey. Today's word is covenant, inspired by our denominational Commission on Appraisal for 2021. Our denomination, Unitarian Universalism, our larger faith tradition, is not content to coast along every year and just let things go as they are. So every year they pick a book, and they have a whole committee that has worked on this book for years and years that examines a piece of our collective culture to make sure we are still where we need to be in the evolution of our humanity. In the past years, they've examined classism, racism, hiring practices, authority, and so many other useful topics. And this year, their topic is covenant. We are a covenantal people. What does that mean? We often think of the word covenant as a biblical word, when in reality it was found in writing no earlier than the 1300s. In the 14th century, covenant was used primarily and only in a legal sense, but it was more than a contract. It was a promise made by deed. Covenant wasn't found in the Bible until vernacular Bibles were made in the language of the people that they lived in. And it was a translation of the Hebrew berith and the Greek diatheke. It became a word referring to a solemn agreement between members of a church in the 1630s with the Scottish Presbyterians. Words change and words evolve. In 1648, the Congregationalists created the Cambridge Platform, which was inherited by the Unitarians. And in 1803, the Universalists wrote the Winchester Profession. Unlike the legal covenants from earlier or the biblical covenants, these two documents didn't include a hierarchical top-down approach. Both the Cambridge Platform and the Winchester Profession were created through the democratic process and the consent of those participating. Isn't that important to have some consent? These covenants also did not require a specific set of beliefs, which is the foundation of our church here. But they rather affirmed a set of mutually shared loyalties, as Reverend James Luther Adam pointed out. We don't have a set of beliefs required for membership here. We have a set of promises to one another. Now, when I first arrived here, I asked folks, where is our church covenant? Does it exist? And I was told, we don't have a church covenant. And so we set upon the process of writing our church covenant. And after all of that process ended, wouldn't you find it funny that when we were downstairs in the room with the HVACs and the other miscellaneous things downstairs, I discovered our church actually did have a covenant from long ago, but we had already voted on the new one, so we'll keep that. But I just wanted to show you, it is beautiful, and you should definitely read it over. So in the spring of 2019, we had a diverse group of folks craft our covenant for our congregation. And it was by democratic consensus that we approved it as our covenant at our 2020 congregational meeting. Our covenant is how we live out our UU principles and our church mission, which is conveniently printed on the front of your order of service. So our UUCB covenant of right relations, I invite you to read along with me if you'd like. It's on the very front, underneath the picture of the stained glass chalice that's out front. It says, inspired by the 7 Unitarian Universalist principles, we promise to nurture a diverse and welcoming congregation by being respectful, friendly, and welcoming to all members, friends, visitors, and staff. We promise to engage and contribute to the life of the congregation by connecting with its programs and governance, and by caring for our shared spaces. We promise to trust that others' behavior is driven by good intentions. We promise to practice direct communication by actively listening to and speaking with individuals, not about them, in an honest and compassionate way. We seek to resolve conflicts and make amends through intentional compromise, and when necessary, request facilitation and mediation. By intentionally encouraging and growing healthy relationships within this congregation, we are empowered to live our values in the broader community. This covenant is a living document that will evolve as we evolve. We will do our best to abide by this covenant. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds utopian and idealistic. And that's exactly its purpose, to call out our best selves and challenge us in this sticky mess that is being a part of a community to act in kind ways, even when it's difficult, to trust that others have good intentions. That is really, really challenging. To have a plan to resolve conflicts, knowing conflicts will inevitably rise up, as they do in every community setting. One critique of covenants is that some folks feel they lose their individuality in a covenant. Psychiatrist M. Scott Peck describes it this way: the problem, indeed the total failure, of the ethic of rugged individualism is that it incorporates only 1/2 of our humanity. It recognizes that we are called individuation, power, and wholeness. But it denies entirely the other part of the story, that we can never fully get there, and that we, of necessity in our uniqueness, weak and imperfect creatures who need each other, it also relentlessly isolates us from each other, and it makes genuine community impossible. Covenant is not a lack of individuals or a lack of individuality. It merely encourages us to work together. In a survey of UU congregational leaders, almost all of them reported that covenant building led to more community cohesiveness and facilitated conflict resolution. Covenants anticipate conflict. They hope for the best and outline the steps to reconciliation. Our covenant is filled with the hope of a congregation that can care for the people who are a part of it, the hope of breaking cycles of harm and abuse found in other religious communities, and the hope of a way back to admitting hurt, compromise, and mending our relationships. Our covenant is rooted in hope. I was delighted to see that Grace and Frankie's new season appeared on Netflix recently. For those of you who were up late, you probably wondered why I picked such an interesting picture to remind you to come to church this morning. But for those of you who are missing out, Grace and Frankie are in their 70s when their husbands leave them for each other. The show follows their adventures together as newly single retirees who address aging and friendship and their openly gay ex-husbands in delightful misadventures. Frankie, played by Lily Tomlin, who I can imagine gives off very UU vibes to some of you. She's a hippie, she's open-minded, you get the gist. And in one of these new episodes, and I promise I'm not spoiling anything here, but the ex-husbands, Saul and Robert, are in the midst of a great squabble. And so Frankie says, I know exactly what to do with this. And she runs off, and she brings forth this thing that kind of looks like the sneed from the Lorax. It's this knitted together hodgepodge of something. And what it turns out when she stretches it all out is it's two sweaters that have been sewn together so that the people will face each other. And so her rule is, she calls it her conflict resolution sweater. And she says, we're going to put on this sweater and you can't take it off until your conflict is resolved. And of course, everyone, hems and haws at her, but they put it on. And because they have to face one another and be in that moment, they eventually work out their problems pretty quickly. The sweater also looks really ridiculously hot, so I'm sure that helps too. But, when folks read our covenant, the reaction we normally get is, well, duh, this is all common sense. This is how we want to treat other people. And it's the equivalent of our conflict resolution sweater. Our covenant is our way of saying, the two of you who are in conflict in our church, let's put on our conflict resolution sweater. Let's work this out. You are both important to our community. And that is what our covenant is all about. From our commission's work, Unitarian Universalism is not a creedal faith. We will never ask you to believe in X, Y, and Z. It is a covenantal faith. More properly said, we are a covenantal faith. We promised each other to behave in certain ways and create common aspirations. We set our lives around the praxis of living out the promises that we make to each other. In doing so, we choose to acknowledge the value of centrality, of organization, of community, and to embrace the practice of covenanting among congregations. First and foremost, it is our promises that hold us together. A covenant, a promise, can only exist with intention and can only be kept alive with attention. Let me repeat that. A covenant, a promise, can only exist with intention and can only be kept alive with attention. Covenant is essential to what Unitarian Universalism is, and we are inattentive to it at our peril. Covenant is the source of strength, focus, clarity, and mission. Our hope lies in this covenant, this promise that finds its power not with words, but with actions and behaviors. Our covenant holds the power of healthy community. As you go forth today, welcome each other. Engage in the life of our congregation. Care for our shared spaces. Trust that others have good intentions. Practice direct communication for praise and critique. Resolve conflict peacefully. These are the ways that we live out our principles and nurture a healthy community. And each of you is essential to this work. We are all in this together. We need not think alike to love alike. You are this community. Amen and blessed be.
please rise in body or spirit for the extinguishing of the chalice and remain standing through the benediction. It is our work, shared with each other in covenant, that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be.
Before I offer the benediction in preparation for our polling place, if you are able to stack some chairs and get them to the edges of our sanctuary, I know our poll workers would greatly appreciate you in the morning. Our benediction: let peace reside in your heart. Let grace spread in the world by your caring touch. Let love spill from your mouth whenever you speak. Move from this space, carrying the blessings and responsibilities of living in community with you. And remember, you are never, ever on this journey alone. Amen, Asante, and blessed be.